but I really found a lot of myself on the Camino. I found that it was stripping me away of the kind of titles and the armor and the career that I over identified with. I'm embarrassed to say, but I had over identified with this career. I think it forced me to face grief. There's something about this walk, which is 850 kilometers over 33 days from the south of France all the way over to the westmost point of Spain, Santiago, that really changes your perspective of things. You know, I think they say it's a 3-part journey. Your mind unclutters, and then your body strengthens, and then kind of finally your soul, I think, really just kind of cracks open.
Welcome to the Seismic Shift podcast, where we explore the seismic shifts that are shaking up the way that you work and the way that you live. Y'all know that I am your host, Michelle Johnston, and I'm so excited to introduce you to our guest today. Give it up for Andrea Hogan. She's got a new book out, The Closest Thing to Magic, and we have a really cool story, and we're going to share. So welcome, Andrea.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much, Michelle, for having me. I just have been following you for so many years, and so gracious of you to invite me on to this fantastic podcast.
Well, what the journey that you've been on is so interesting. And let's just bring the listeners to how in the world we know each other. She's got an amazing accent from Ireland, and we actually met in the beautiful state of California. It was the first time I had been to San Diego, and I remember landing to work with Qualcomm, where Andrea was a big marketing exec, and I was working for the chief marketing officer, Don McGuire, and he hired me multiple times to fly out to San Diego to their headquarters to work with as an entire marketing division, all of the leaders on connection. My first book, The Seismic Shift in Leadership, had just come out, and he's like, we have got to create a connected division. And so I met Andrea there and fell in love with her. I was like, this is the coolest person. And so since I planted that seed, I want you to share with our listeners your journey since then to get to us to the point of writing this fantastic book.
Wow. Yeah. Well, likewise, I just want to say meeting you was such a phenomenal session. I think Don, one great thing about his leadership is like he realized the importance of bringing people in and really establishing a strong culture. And yes, your energy and the session that day, I think was a really turning point for the marketing organization and shifting into this, instead of having a fragmented organization, one organization that really deeply valued culture. So thrilled that I met you then, and thrilled that we've stayed in touch, and so happy to be here today. So that is a really good starting point for kind of where I was in my role as regional CMO for Qualcomm, a dotted line into Don and reporting to the president of North America, to where I am now. And it's funny, I was thinking about this morning as we got on the call, before I got on the call, that, I didn't really wake up one day and decide to kind of blow up my life. From the outside, everything was like really, really working. I mean, for years, I was doing what so many women do. I was pushing in my career. I was reaching for the next level in my personal life. I was doing a lot of things. I just turned 50, and I was doing marathons and Ironmans and climbing summits like Whitney. And I think in hindsight now, I was just kind of proving that I could do hard things, and but at the same time, I was holding a lot, and I was covering up a lot. And I think that's also something a lot of us go through when we're in this phase. I was kind of, raising children. I was sustaining a marriage. I was, navigating menopause and, which no one really prepares you for, and watching my mother go through a very aggressive and kind of sudden demise battle with Alzheimer's. So my sister was back in Ireland doing the lion's share of the work and taking care of her. And, I write in my book actually that distance both shields and protects you. It's very, very difficult. It carries a huge weight being away. So I had all of this going on in the background. And then professionally, there was a change in the organization. We had a reorg and a change of priorities. And, the role that I was doing and the kind of organization I was in no longer had the same appeal to me. And I felt I was not showing up the way I wanted to show up as a person. And I wasn't really, in an organization I really wanted to be in anymore. And I had a lot of these pulls and draws on me. So I actually went home to Ireland. I helped my mother get her into care, which was a very traumatic, thing that a lot of us do with our parents, unfortunately. And when I was home, I stumbled across a journal that she had, which she had written 12 years earlier when she'd walked the Camino de Santiago. It was 10 years earlier then. And it was a really humble journal written in a school copybook. And, she had called it, I remember, the greatest adventure of her life. And as I read it, I was like, I want to do this someday. I would definitely do this someday. And then I just thought, why not now? Why not now? I have time. I've taken this time off work. Mom's in a home. I was heading back to San Diego, but I thought, why not now? And so the Camino really, for me, was the kind of, I think, seismic shift in my career. And I didn't think it would be. I went, I think, searching for parts of my mother that I thought would replace or help me because of the parts I was losing to her with Alzheimer's. But I really found, I think, a lot of myself on the Camino. I found that it was stripping me away of the kind of titles and the armor and the career that I over-identified with. I'm embarrassed to say, but I had over-identified with this career. I think it forced me to face grief and anger. And there's something about this walk, which is 850 kilometers over 33 days from the south of France all the way over to the westmost point of Spain, Santiago, that really changes your perspective of things. I think they say it's a 3-part journey. Your mind unclutters, and then your body strengthens, and then kind of finally your soul, I think, really just kind of cracks open. And it's there is this, I think, it's this thing about where you're ultimately walking day to day with no other thing on our plate. And if you think about that for a second, your average day for any of us, and if you take away everything, like you have no responsibilities, you have no pets, you have no children, you have no emails, you have no groceries, you have no laundry. Like if you think of one day where you have nothing, and then you multiply that by 33 days, and then you couple that with walking, the beautiful, simple exercise of walking, 25, 30 kilometers a day. I can't even explain it enough, but something really shifts, something magical happens. There's like this physiological change in you. It's the pairing of all these things, because you're kind of finding for the first time maybe this best version of yourself, but you're also meeting all these people who are also now finding the best version of themselves. So those connections, those relationships, all of the experiences you encounter are just really, really interesting. And I'll say lastly on that, I think the other big shift for me was, there was 2 things that happened to me on the Camino, I think, in terms of a seismic shift, so to speak. And I love the way you talk about that. One was this returning to a place of kind of joy. I think for all of us, that is actually our factory setting, and we just lose it. We lose sight of it. And also this piece of me that I think there's so many parts of who we are. But these traits can coexist together. You can be ambitious and you can be kind. You can be, you can be courageous and also be vulnerable. You don't have to choose. All of these things can show up. And I think that was something I was, I realized that life is not just about playing one note loudly. It's about kind of harmonizing all of these notes of who we are, so that your life kind of sounds less like noise and more like, I think, more like music, more like music.
Oh my gosh, there's so much to unpack. Wow. So let me get the timing right, Andrea. When you put your mom into the care home, right?
Yeah.
Got her in a facility, you could have flown back to San Diego. And at that point you thought, I need to do this for me, and there's no better time. So did you have to sign up, or you just decided, I'm gonna hike the Camino?
That's what everyone asked me. I just decided, I came back just to get some things organized, and I'm lucky, I'm in decent shape, so I was kind of fit enough. I hadn't walked, trained. My mom had done, I figured at 68, she had not had any planning really. She did a little bit of exercise walking. She didn't plan accommodation. She went town to town, went by herself. So I really wanted to honor her pilgrimage and do it the same way. And I figured if she could do it that way, I could too. So I just literally booked a ticket to Biarritz. I got a bus to Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, and then I just kicked it off. You start in that town and you go over the Pyrenees. It's called the Napoleon Pass, an ancient pass, and you climb over those Alps into Spain and walk across the northern route called the Camino Frances. So it was very very spontaneous. Maybe if I thought about it too much, I wouldn't have done it. I would have changed my mind.
That's incredible. And some of the things, I love how you keep referring and framing to these things as seismic shifts. The first seismic shift that I talk about in my latest book with Marshall is the shift in perspective. To shift from what to who, because we truly believe, and Marshall's been coaching the top leaders of the top companies in the world. And he found that many of those leaders had been focusing on what, next, achievement, task, and then got to the top and felt really empty. And had not prioritized relationships, and definitely had not prioritized their own health. So they looked around and they said, okay, well, first of all, my health's not good, and my most important relationships that I say are important aren't even on my calendar, and I'm not prioritizing them. So that's where we really started with our book. And I feel like what your big revelation was that shift. You recognized you had over-identified with your huge career. I mean, Andrea she was the chief regional officer in marketing for Qualcomm, as Qualcomm was exploding, and she was so good at what she did. It was exploding.
And I loved it. I loved it.
And you loved it, and you were so good at it. So tell me a couple of shifts while you were on the trail, while you were walking, of how it affected you personally.
Yeah, I think there was one day I always go back to. It's interesting. I very deliberately, I'm a very social person, as you know, Michelle, super social. And I really wanted the Camino. I wanted it to be an introspective journey for me. I felt like I wanted that. And I deliberately went with this by myself. And I started really early in the morning. I would get up at 5:36 and have my little light on my hat and set out in the dark, because I didn't want to talk to people all day. I didn't want to find a tribe day one and walk across the country with them. I really wanted this journey to be time for me. And that's what happens on the Camino is, I feel like the conversations, there's no expectation of people that you meet, that you talk to them. But I think the Camino has a way of, you end up talking to people that you're meant to talk to. Either you needed them or they needed you. It's something I can't really explain, but those conversations happened very organically for the first third half of the Camino. And then there were people that I'd met from point to point. And by the last week, it became a very, very social thing. But there was a very significant moment where something beautiful happened. And it was in a town called Portomarin, an ancient town. And I was day 29 in the Camino. So I'm, well into the Camino at this point. This is 29 days later of hiking. And I went for a walk, and I went down to there's a beautiful bridge there, an ancient Roman bridge. And I was journaling, and the sun was going down, and I had a few people on WhatsApp, Camino pilgrim friends. And I texted and said, who wants to come down? I hadn't gone for a swim yet, and I had my bathing suit with me, and who wants to come for a little swim in the river? And within about 30 minutes, there was about 6-7 of us down, and one person brought a 6-pack of beer, and we went for a little dip. And I was just sitting there with my beer, and it was ridiculous, because you think about all the moments we have in your life, like, I don't know, for me, having babies, getting married, getting promoted. There was a sense of joy. And I explained it like, it was like every cell in my body had a smiley face emoji on it. It was just this, and maybe it was the 29 days prior to this point, but this lightness and this freedom and this joy in this kind of ridiculously simple moment. And that night, the crazy thing is, I would write my journal, and then I would read Mom's. And there were sometimes some parallels between our journeys on that day. But that night I wrote, my last line was this was the happiest day of my life. And my mom's journal entry that night was also, this was the happiest day of my life. The exact same language. And I had felt her presence with me a number of times, but I thought it was so poignant that was the day she had that epiphany. That was what she wrote, and that was the day that I had mine. I felt like she was literally with me, holding my hand that day. So
Boy,
that
do
was
I
probably
have
the,
chills. If you don't
yeah,
have chills, oh my goodness, I've got goosebumps. So you're telling me, I want to make sure I understand this
yeah.
correctly. You had not read her journal yet of that day to know
No,
that she had
nothing.
written the same exact thing that you were about to write. Was it a similar experience? She did the same, like what? She just happened to be in that town and say the
She,
same exact
and it was
thing.
a night with her friends too. She met a group of people. Mom had a group of 6 or 7 people who, by the way, contribute to the book because, part of the book is about the relationships we make and those that continue long after the journey. And it was her tribe that she met, and they were out that night, and they just had all different ages, all different nationalities, all different walks of life, and some of them didn't even speak English. They somehow communicated, and she just had this amazing day and evening with them. And I had read the journal that time when I was home, but certainly none of those days were clear in my head. And I told myself on the journey that I would make sure that I would write mine first, so that her entry wouldn't, change my perspective of the day or influence it or create any bias. So that was, yeah, I think, and like I said, it's such a ridiculously simple, a dip in the ocean with in the river with some friends, but I couldn't explain. I think, like I said, it was all of these things that had built up to that moment, and the unshedding or the shedding of, the layers that I had not even known that I'd done over the previous 29 days, step by step.
So joy. So you did
Joy.
rediscover joy.
I rediscovered joy, and it just felt like a lightness. It felt like I said, it was what I wrote to my daughter, a text that night. It was literally, that was exactly what I felt like. Every single cell in my body lit up. It was like just this feeling of complete freedom, like I was unshackled for the first time. And I don't think that is something you can possibly feel. Like when people talk about doing this walk, I think there is something about the time aspect of it, like to have that much free time. And it is with purpose, because you are walking to the next town. You can do it as long as you want. You don't have to do it in 35 days, but there's a purpose and a goal. But but that's kind of it. And it's such a simple, such a simple thing. And I also think there's something about it, like it's 1,000+ year old pilgrimage, and the millions of people who've walked before you, the churches that you go into, there is something magical about the way itself. There definitely is an aura on it that I think also has something to do with everything that happens.
So that was so close. That day of just pure joy was so close to the end. So
Yeah.
what sort of action came out of that? What did you do as a result of experiencing that joy, shedding all of those layers, getting, I guess, extricating yourself from your identification with your job and your work? Like, what did you end up doing differently as a result?
Yeah, I think just my overall sense of awareness. I think I came back and realized that I wanted to. There was a quote that a very good comedian, his name is Jimmy Carr, said. He talks about enjoying the passage of time. And his concept is that, like, it's such a miracle that we are here on this planet. I mean, your parents had to get together at a very specific time on a very specific day, but their parents did too, and their parents did too. Like, it's kind of a miracle that we're here. And it's this idea that, all these circumstances had to align. So appreciating this privilege of us being here. So coming back, I think I had this new sense of, I talked about this joy being a factory setting. I also realized that, like, it is within me. I don't need to walk a Camino again to find it. It's in all of us. Like, we just have to tap into it and give ourselves space to feel it. And I think that was the lesson, is to know that I could go back to that at any one time and never let myself get that far removed from it again, and to incorporate habits into my day that really kind of made sure that endured. And to my next chapter was really going to be something I was super passionate about and had more purpose to it, because that, at the end of the day, that's all that really matters.
So tell me, what did you end up doing?
Yeah. So, well, I came back and I took a little time. Well, a couple of things. I think I kept writing. I think that the lessons were still unfolding for me, I think, a little bit. So the writing was a way for me to kind of process a little bit more and kind of package up all of the great things that I'd learned. So did a photo album and then kept writing and writing. And then the writing took this shape. I felt like there was the bones of something there. And I'd written a lot as a child, and I'd taken some courses on writing, and I actually always thought I'd be a journalist before a marketeer. So it was such an enjoyable outlet. I'd look forward to sitting with my cup of tea and having my, just doing my book, and what was shaping up to be a book. And I think that was what I decided about 4 months into that that would be the end goal, that I would get her story out into the world, because that could be my gift to her. The greatest adventure of her life could be, I could share it with other people. And how amazing would it be that she could inspire people? And how she would want to inspire them would be because she would want to inspire people to have an adventure. And when I say that, it is so interesting, Michelle. I know you travel a lot, and I know when you're in the corporate world, you're used to taking trips and doing that. But there are so many women who have not had a night away by themselves, who are terrified at the idea of having a coffee by themselves, or being in a restaurant, or doing anything for themselves. And, this idea that you can inspire someone to say, I actually do need an adventure for myself. I am going to take a trip, whether it's a weekend or a week, or I'm going to do something for myself. So the idea of sharing mom's story and doing that, and also this idea of sharing, the pain, I think, that people and struggle that people have with losing parents to Alzheimer's. It's something so many people have talked to me about, and sharing that story and giving people license to feel they can bring that into their lives and into their conversations. And there's so much relief and support in those conversations with other people. So sharing that story and giving people license to realize, I actually do need time to grieve. Like, if not just if my parent passes, but even in these kind of situations where there is Alzheimer's, that I need time to grieve. It's not always the best solution to head down, keep working, and that's this society's expectations. You just get on with it. Stay productive. You keep pounding the pavement. But to give people license to say, you know what? No, I'm at a point where I need to step back. And I feel like too, I've had a lot of people say to me, taking time out of your career, don't take more than 3 months, don't take more than 6 months, you won't get back in. It's just too risky. And I just don't want to subscribe to that. So I feel I'm very motivated by a mission to prove all of them wrong, because life is long, but it is also super short, depending on way you look at it, right? And both of those things are true. And I'm going to have another maybe 5 chapters. I tend to live a very, very long life, but I won't do that if I burn myself out, if I'm stressed to the max. I'll do that if I keep reinventing myself, keep enjoying what I do, stay purposeful, take care of my health. So this book for me is about inspiring people to really live their best lives. And for me, it's been an absolutely phenomenal, I think, catalyst to start building my next life, because I'm obligated. I've made an oath and commitment to myself to do that. And that has been very powerful. So I've written the book, I published it, and started my own consulting company. And I'm helping tech companies, go to marketing plans and AI startup companies, and really enjoying that. But I have this balance now that I think, and sense of purpose and an accomplishment that's mine. That is not what somebody else's version of what that accomplishment should be, but really it's mine, and that's very special.
That's so beautiful to hear, Andrea. So how could you do a compare and contrast from your life, at a big tech company, and what that was like compared to your life now, and the correlation between your peace and your joy? Like, you seem to have figured out what's working now for you. So do a compare and contrast for us.
Yeah, I think my days are so different now. I think, like I said, I'm very conscious of energy now. My days when I was at Qualcomm, it was, your calendar is really not your own. It's hard. People talk about managing your own calendar, but it's really difficult in the corporate world, because you're not the owner of your calendar. It's hard to turn down meetings. It's hard to say that doesn't work for me. Or, I was laughing. A friend of mine has had a great new job, and she's gone from corporate Ireland to a government company, and she starts at 9:30. They ensure they make you take a coffee break at 11. They make you take a lunch break for 1 hour and 15 minutes at lunch. And I was like, oh my god, in the corporate world, you work through lunch. They think it's great that you get your tacos rolled in for lunch. You don't have to pay for it, but you're working. You don't get a break. That's the price you pay. That you're getting your free taco, but you don't get 5 minutes off from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. So I love now that my calendar is my day, and it really is geared around energy. I'm a very slightly obsessed person when it comes to energy. I have a lot of energy. I've been blessed with super great energy, great DNA. I'm very, very thankful for that. But I also think energy is something that has to be super, super intentional. And I really tee up my day to make sure that I have the best energy for myself. And that looks like, I get up and at 5 a.m. and I do my transcendental meditation. I do some breathing. I'm very much into breathing practices. And I always exercise, yoga or walking. I still love the sacred thing that is walking. It really grounds me, and I have a dog, so she really appreciates that too. And so then by the time I am facing my grumpy 15-year-old teenager, I have had this time for myself, and I feel so grateful for it. I've had almost a day at the spa. It feels like I've had this time to give myself. So now I'm showing up, for my son, for my clients, for, my advisory roles, my board work, that rest of the day I am showing up with this really great positive energy. I'm very, very kind of grounded and in a kind of calm state versus in a hurried state, which is important. And I control all those meetings. I mean, you know how that is too. You now, when you're an independent contractor consultant, you decide what calls you want to take. You decide when you want to schedule your meetings. There's something lovely in that. I mean, it's not like I'm working probably harder now than I have ever, but it's my work, it's my time and my choice. And that makes, I think, all the difference.
All the difference in the world. You're absolutely right.
All the difference.
I had to learn how to truly shift my calendar so that it worked for me. I did.
Yeah. You talk about that in your
yeah.
latest book. I love how you talk about the calendar is so, my gosh, it's a frantic thing. When you are held hostage to it, it's just, and that's your life. That's your time. That's what makes up every day,
Your life, your time.
Yes.
And I even ended my book with the chapter on energy because I don't think enough people talk about energy.
Yes, I know. Well, you have phenomenal energy too. And I just don't think it's something you have because, like I said, your intention, you are super intentional about how you show up every day and the things that you do to make sure that you have the right kind of energy for the life that you live in. And energy doesn't just translate into how we show up and how other people see us. It translates into how we feel. It translates into our health. It translates into how we sleep. It just has this massive, ripple effect. And I just think we need to all take more stock of that. So yeah, massive shift in my days in the corporate world versus now. And then travel too is I'm not traveling every week. I travel much more intentionally. I have much more personal travel because I can work remotely and be anywhere I want, and I can see mom more and my family more and friends more. And next week I'm heading to England to the Cotswolds because I'm going to work from there for a few days. I've always wanted to go there. That was one of mom's favorite places, and I couldn't have done that before, So there are a lot of advantages for sure.
Oh gosh, that sounds amazing. What prompted your mom at age 68 to hike the Camino?
It's interesting now. I think mom was, I talk about this in my book, her motivations were very different than mine. I think in a way there was a lot of skeletons in mom's closets, some that I'll probably never know about. So I think adventure for a way, in a way was her way of kind of escaping something. She always wanted to, she never wanted to do the inner work, mom. That's a very Irish thing and a very that generational thing. There was no therapy and conversations and vulnerability. It was like, you just get on with it, and in a way I loved being raised that way because the Irish are kind of known, we don't really complain. You just gotta get on with it, It's like, I remember one time I had a boyfriend break up with me, and Mom was like, Andy, you have your 2 arms and your 2 legs. And I remember thinking, yeah, I do, Mom, but I just had my heart broken. Can I not be upset for 5 minutes? But it was actually really good, because what it really meant was that, we have everything we need to get on with it and be tough and resilient. But we also need to be able to, put our hand up and say when we need something and be vulnerable. And that's okay too. So I had to learn that. I think for Mom, I think now too, she probably knew before we did that she was struggling with memory loss. And I think she probably knew she needed to take some big adventures before that got worse. And the reason I say that is because even with her Camino entries, there was a lot of almost logging of facts versus kind of stories. There was the people's names and the places and the almost, and things were highlighted in a way almost that she didn't want to forget, And so I think I think she had a sense that she was running out of time.
Thank you for sharing this beautiful story. For all of our listeners, I found Andrea's story of hiking the Camino to be really reflective and symbolic, and the epitome of what I'm trying to get the message out there about the seismic shift in you, that there are times in your life where you do need a seismic shift, and hers was hiking the Camino, and she gave herself permission and she listened to her gut. And because a lot of her career had been on the identity, her identification with the achievement and the title and all that she accomplished at Qualcomm was incredible and throughout her career. And so then she had this shift, okay, let me prioritize myself and what I need. And then when she did that, then she was able to really connect with others and her story and herself and come out of it this new chapter and this new sense of joy and new sense of belonging and new sense of connection. So Andrea, thank you so much for being on the Seismic Shift.
It has been my pleasure, and let's stay in touch. Keep writing those books, by the way.
Yeah, you keep writing. So tell everybody, where can they get the closest thing to magic?
Oh, they could get it. It's now available on Amazon, of course, like every other book, right? The hugest platform in the world, but also Barnes & Noble. So, like I said, if I can inspire anyone to take a walk, they can also, please tell your readers, you can also reach out to me, DM me. I'm always happy to talk about this topic, and any question on logistics or just about what it takes to kind of take a step back and a step towards something you want to do, I'd love to have that conversation.
Listeners, you absolutely should reach out to Andrea Hogan, the author, and it made #1 Amazon bestseller, The Closest Thing to Magic. That's on my bucket list. I'm going to hike the Camino. I don't know if I can do it for all 30 days because I'm still a faculty member and have to teach classes. But I do want to pop in, and I do want to have the experience of hiking the Camino. So get in touch with Andrea if you have any questions at all. She would love to hear from you. You are a beautiful human, and thank you for bringing your energy into my life. Bye now.
Thank you again. Michelle. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Thank you to our listeners of the Seismic Shift podcast. Thanks to you. We are now a top 10% podcast globally, which is amazing. And thank you to Loyola University New Orleans for your incredible sponsorship of this podcast. Take care. Bye. Thank you for joining us on the Seismic Shift. And before you go, can I ask one favor of you? Do you mind sharing today's episode with a leader you know? The power of this conversation is found in your using it and sharing it to create real connection in your life. Lastly, I'd like to thank Loyola University New Orleans for helping bring this content to life.